guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about retiring in America versus retiring overseas. 7 things you need to know.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are different about retiring overseas versus in America. And if people who are thinking about retiring or preparing for retirement have seen some of the things we've seen or knew some of the things we found out in the last 6 years of traveling the world full time, it would change their minds pretty quickly about retiring overseas. But there's a lot of misconceptions out there because misconceptions are easy to make when you haven't been somewhere, and those often drive people's decisions. So we're going to talk about some of those today and kind of walk you through what we've seen, what the differences would be versus retiring in one place versus another, and why it might be a good choice to look at overseas. So one of the first things that you need to know is that you will be living a much less sedentary lifestyle if you retire overseas.
Absolutely, and this is in your everyday type thing. I mean, when we're at home in the US, you want to go to the grocery store, you hop in the car, you run over to the grocery store, grab your things, throw it in the car, go back, and then you're home, you're done. Here, we want to go to the grocery store. Usually we have to walk to the train station, get on the train, ride the train to the grocery store, get off, walk to the grocery store, walk around and get your groceries, and then you have to carry said groceries with you back to the train, get to the train, get on, get off, and then go back to your apartment. So you can only carry so much stuff. So first of all, you're only going to buy so many things. And I do love that concept of only, bringing back what you can carry. So there's not this, hoarding of food for no reason. It's nice to be able to move around a lot too, to have that walk to the store, to have that you're outside, you're getting fresh air a lot, anywhere you want to go. You can walk. There's a lot of walking communities, which I think is one of the things you really love too, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of walking, and the other thing is that in America, we generally will buy 2 to 3 weeks worth of groceries at a time, load them in the minivan, bring them home. This is just a couple of days worth at a time, and even we here, we notice that locals generally get just for that day, and we still try to get 3 days, 4 days. We're carrying a lot more back, but that's just our habit. So you will do more walking, and you will be able to do more things. You'll be able to eat out more. You'll be able to go get facials or massages or go to movies more because they're going to be so inexpensive. You will be out and about doing stuff instead of just, watching TV or doing something that is free or inexpensive at home. So much less sedentary lifestyle, and that is a good thing. The second thing that will be different is you will need to prepare to let your guard down. And what I mean by that is overseas, you will need to not have that kind of just wondering what's going on around you all the time. And most people, and we found this about ourselves, who have lived in the US their whole life, you probably have your guard up, and you've had it up most of your life. You just don't know it. And once you get in a community overseas that you don't need to do that, it will feel so freeing.
Absolutely. I think I walk around like this all the time, but I don't realize it. You're ready to, okay, what's going to come my way? But I feel like, oh, okay, it just kind of melts off when you're in a lot of other places, and you just kind of open yourself up to so much more. It's such an incredible way to live, and it kind of elevates your quality of life too.
Yeah, we were on the train just yesterday, and the local metro, and a young American man got on. He was probably 25 years old, and he had headphones in, and he was just riding the train, and all of a sudden he took a headphone out, and he said, "Is this a soak stop?" And everyone just kind of looked at him, and another American was standing right there with us too, and he was like, "No, it's the next one." And then 2 Thai women turned to him and said, "No, it's the next one. We'll show you where it is. We'll help you get out." And he was like, "All right, this is my first day in Thailand, everybody." So he's just announcing this to the whole train. And so then everyone's like, "Oh, great, yeah, how are you?" So, it was just like, these are things that you don't see. And then when we got to the station, the Thai ladies helped him off the train, showed him where to go, and it was all just fine.
Yeah, it's so amazing to me. Like, you ride the subway in, let's say, New York City, which we visit often, and you would dream of telling someone, "This is my first day in New York City," out in the middle of the train. It's like, first of all, everyone would ignore you. Second of all, you make yourself a quick target for people. And it's just kind of crazy to me that this young man just got on the train, and all of a sudden everyone around him was concerned for him, not in a bad way, but they were like, "Oh, well, we want to make sure he gets to the station he wants to go to." And they made it their mission. As soon as he got off, I watched people around him, and like Rob said, the Thai ladies were like, "Oh, you go this way over here, to go down, and then check your card out and you're all set," or whatever. So it was such a refreshing type experience. When you let your guard down, you just kind of open up to a lot of really beautiful experiences.
Next one is going to be that your money is going to stretch so far, further than you ever dreamed. So you'll be able to go retire earlier than you think if you can establish that those are some countries that you would like to live in. Once you've established that and you want to spend part or all of your year overseas, you can reduce your budget, because we have a budget of $4,000. We never go over that budget unless we purposely are doing something that is out of character. And so there are times when we do go over that, like we flew 3 times last month, and that made us go over the budget a little bit because we were checking into all different places. But that's the kind of thing, or maybe you'll take a couple of high-speed train rides. That'll get you over. But the key here is getting your feet on the ground and experiencing these countries, because unless you've been there, you will not know if these are countries that you can put in your arsenal of places to go to live cheaply. And that is the whole key, because seeing other people's experiences is different than your own experiences, and you need to know if you can function in some of these countries.
Yeah, and I think that's such a huge key. You just don't know how you are going to feel in a particular place until you actually get there and insert yourself. You don't know if you're going to like what the weather is like, what it smells like, what it feels like, what it looks like, what the interactions are with the locals. You have got to get there and actually, experience it for yourself. We're all so different. We all have, our own preferences and such. And that's why it is such a key thing that we always talk about. We actually have a course we put out, Retirement Travel Jumpstart. And that's one of the key things that we discuss in there in depth. And also the trips that we take as a part of that Retirement Travel Jumpstart course. The trips that are part of that are to explore the places and to really look at it for the view of, how will I feel here if I stay here beyond a vacation period type thing. And I think that's really important to experience that, because you just can't figure it out until you actually get there and feel it for yourself.
Exactly. And so we wanted to let you know, if you're already in that community or in that course, we have scheduled our first trip, our group trip. It's going to be this fall/winter, to Mexico, to go get feet on the ground in Mexico. We're going to be doing a cruise, a group cruise. We've already got our cabin booked, so that's awesome. We're super excited. And that's one of the things we want to help people do, is get on location with some other people, meet some people, and find out, okay, are these places that I could live in or like to go to? So we're doing this first one in Mexico, and then we're going to be doing one to Europe and one to Asia after that at some point next year. So that's super exciting. Check that out. There's a link in the description to the Retirement Travel Jumpstart community if you're interested in that type of thing. All right, the next one that we need to talk about here is the level of comfort and luxury. This is another one that you cannot comprehend until you get feet on the ground. And this isn't really everywhere, but in a lot of places it will be. As you get older, you want things to be easy and more luxurious. So in most other countries, unless you're in like a expensive Scandinavian country or something, you're going to be able to afford things that you couldn't afford at home, whether that's a housekeeper or whether that's getting your hair done. Maybe you do your own hair because of costs. You can have those things done for you, And you can have them done more often, things like facials, massages, and it just makes it easier. You can afford to get a taxi instead of having to walk, or maybe you don't want to carry your bag on the subway. A lot of times we'll just say, let's get a taxi because it's only $3. Whereas at home, an Uber ride can be $18, $19, $20. And we're like, let's just walk, or let's try to take the train. That's a huge, a huge advantage to being overseas.
Yeah, I think that is such a huge thing that people think, well, I have to give up, comfort and luxury. You absolutely don't. It's available to you. It really just depends on where you choose. And when I'm in Southeast Asia, gosh, I get pedicures way more than I would when I'm at home. I get facials way more than when I was at home. And just all those special things, because they're so much more affordable, and you can do them more often and really kind of treat yourself, honestly, with those experiences. So I think it's just really important to understand that you don't have to give those things up. I think a lot of times there's that misconception that, oh, you're going to such and such country, they're not well off, which means everyone's going to be whatever, and I won't be able to have all these comforts and luxuries from home. That is a huge misconception.
Yeah, and kind of going along with that is that you are not giving up your modernness, and you're not going to have to go live, in some rural area. Just because a country as a whole is not as modern as the U.S. or maybe some other countries, doesn't mean that the place that you will be living in will not be modern. In fact, the place that you will be living in as an expat, unless you kind of go off the beaten path and blaze your own trail, is likely to be much more modern than what you have at home. So, we live in Atlanta, and it's a pretty modern area where we live, north side of Atlanta, and it's more modern here. The shops we go to, the things we do, the metro system we ride on, it is more modern than anything we have. The movie theaters we go to, they're better. Everything is just, the restaurants are nicer. It's really unexplainable how modern things are. Even just like, if you want to just compare the Apple Store in Atlanta to the Apple Store here in Thailand. In Thailand, it's better. It's just more modern. Everything is so modern. It's almost hard to explain how modern it is. You can buy luxury cars in the mall that I don't even think you can buy in Atlanta. So it's just hard to believe. It's one of those things, again, unless you get your feet on the ground, it'll be hard to understand.
Yeah, I remember the first time we went to one of the malls here in Bangkok, somebody had suggested, oh, you got to go check out the malls. I was like, why would I go to the mall? I'm not really a mall person. Now I understand. It's like a whole community. A mall isn't just a mall with just stores that you go just shopping in. It's like an everything. And I remember walking through the mall, and all of a sudden I was like, I saw this car and I thought, oh my gosh, that's a really cool car. And then as I got closer, I realized that's a McLaren. And it's for sale here in the middle of the mall. There's a dealership inside the mall. It was like, I could buy, across from it, I could buy a Maserati or a Land Rover or a Rolls Royce. And I was like, what in the world? Like, where am I? I'm really in Bangkok, Thailand, in the mall. And there's all this luxury. And not on top of that, you've got like all the fancy, name brand stuff that you wouldn't even dream of buying, spending money on. All these name brand, like clothing and purses and all this stuff. And you're just like, whoa, this is wild. I don't even know any places in the U.S. where you could go and see all of that in like one building.
Yeah, it's kind of overwhelming. We were in the mall just the other day, and I was looking at something for our computer. Just wanted a hard drive, and they had these like gaming setups that were blowing your mind. I've never seen them like that before, where they had like 6 monitors around and 2 chairs and like liquid cooled computers. It was just amazing. If I could fit that all in my bag, I would, but I could not fit it in my bag, unfortunately. So yeah, the modernness is just off the charts in a lot of these places. Next we're going to talk about is that retiring in the US versus retiring overseas, it is actually easier to meet people, we have found, when you're overseas. Because when you are in the US, maybe your experience has been like ours, it can be tough to meet people. Like when we spend a month in a city, like let's say we go to Seattle, we will have a hard time like meeting people, meeting locals, meeting other just people we might want to talk to. Spent a month in New York City last year, and I don't know that we met anybody really that was there. Here, overseas, you will, just by the fact of you are American or whatever you are, if you're Canadian, it will stick out that you are that. And other people who are that will automatically come up to you and say, just start a conversation. Like going back to the guy on the subway, the metro system, he just announced to the whole train, first day in Thailand, and then there was another American next to him. He's like, oh, where are you from? I'm from Maryland. Well, I'm from Florida. Oh, and then they started talking, and then they're friends, and we were standing. That happens so often, like almost daily. Someone will ask us where we're from in America because that's just the way that it happens. People look for common ground when they're away from home. And whenever you find someone with common ground, they're going to want to talk about it.
Yeah, I think a big one for us that's easy to get targeted as Americans is Rob's usually wearing like baseball team shirts or a ball cap with a team or something that's obviously from the U.S. and people will say, oh, you're a Rangers fan or you're a this fan or whatever, and then or people will say, oh, you're from Baltimore. No, I'm not. What makes you think that? Oh, you're wearing an Orioles hat. And then the next thing you know, you end up having dinner with these people later on that day because people are just so open. And that's really what happens from when we were talking earlier about letting your guard down is once you do that, it is so much easier to meet people because I feel like, when we're at home, people are so guarded that, it just makes it so much more difficult to actually interact with people.
Yeah, exactly. And the next one is that you are not going to struggle with language as much as you imagine that you will. So that is kind of a push for both places. Obviously, you won't struggle with language at home, but you really won't struggle that much when you're overseas either. We have just found that pretty much everywhere you go, except for Japan, that's always the one caveat, you're going to find English. That is kind of a worldwide thing now, and especially in service areas where you will be, all the cashiers, the servers, they're all pretty much going to speak English.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how open people are to helping you, and that's why we try to learn just like at least a couple of key phrases in each country that we go to, because if you try that, they know you're at least trying and not coming in and like demanding that they speak English for you. I think that's the key thing, is being open to the fact that this country doesn't owe me speaking English. They just do. And like you said, even in the service industry, you get even more. And it's just really amazing how kind people can be and how helpful they are in a lot of veins. I had to replace some pants that I've had. I only travel with a few pair of pants, and they were pretty much down to the wire. And I went to the Lululemon store, yes, here in Bangkok, Thailand, at the mall, and the cashier said, oh, where are you guys from? They ask us this in a lot of places. Mind you, her English was as good as mine. And she said, where are you guys from? We said, we're from the U.S. She says, oh, where in the U.S.? We said, we're from Atlanta, Georgia. She's like, oh, that's a new one. I haven't heard that one. She said, where is that in the U.S.? We said, oh, if you know where Florida is? She said, yes, because almost everybody knows that. I said, it's right above Florida. She says, oh, okay. She said, I've had a lot of American customers today. She said, you're like the 5th American customers that we've had. I was like, oh, really? She says, oh, yeah, a lot of American customers today. I don't know why that is. I was like, I don't know either. But that was just really interesting. And her English was so, so good. I literally forgot that I was in Bangkok, Thailand.
Yeah, it is funny because you'll almost always servers or store workers will speak pretty much the language that they need to do their job. So like if you're at a store, they'll be able to say, do you want a bag? Do you want to use cash or credit? All these things. And then every once in a while, they'll surprise you because they'll just break out English like you speak it. And so I was at a store buying something, and she was like, do you want a bag? I was like, yeah. And so I paid, and I was like, thank you. And she's like, all right, well, thanks. Well, have a great day. And I was like, okay, so you speak English, and more, that is the case, that we find there is just so much English everywhere, and that's just here. There are countries like Malaysia or Philippines where like English is just rampant, and pretty much everywhere in the world, again outside of Japan, we have had no problem with English. So it's one of these fears that people have, that your retirement is going to be worse if you leave the U.S. because of this language barrier. We get that a lot, language barrier. We downloaded all these apps to translate. We never ever use them in most countries because it's just not necessary.
Yeah, probably the one country we use it consistently is in Japan, because it's so much harder to, have things translated. But for the most part, we rarely use it. And honestly, what you said earlier is so true. Is people think that when they think about their retirement, they think, I'm just going to retire in the U.S. and I'll stay there and maybe I'll do a couple of trips and that'll be my retirement. But really open up to the idea of, traveling abroad and staying abroad for longer chunks of time, doing maybe slow travel, or being an expat outside of the country, because it's just going to be such a different experience, and it's going to give you a little bit better quality of life. And especially when you're trying to enjoy that retirement, getting the modernness, getting that comfort level. And that's why we put together this course, the Retirement Travel Jumpstart, to kind of walk you through the process and help you, because that's the daunting part, right? Mm-hmm. The part of doing all of the steps of, oh my gosh, well, what does that even involve? It sounds like a lot of stuff.
What bank do I use? Where does my mail go? All this stuff.
All those things, we break those down for you in the course and just make it so much easier for you. And then on top of that, we've got the community, so you can chat with other people who are in the group as well as with us in the community in that course, as well as the trips that we're going to do, because that's what's going to give you the experience of actually getting boots on the ground and trying it out for yourself. How do you like it? How do you feel there? Is this a place you would consider staying long term, or even, retiring to and becoming an expat? So if you are interested in that course, the link is in the description. We do also still have our YouTube course as well. If you wanted both courses, we do have a bundle for that. Also, you can get the links for everything in the description. As always, guys, hopefully this video was helpful to you. If you have questions, leave those for us in the comments section. Give us a like if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next time.